Dan and the crew here today. We're headed out. We're going, uh-oh. Hold your horses, buddy.
Oh my gosh.
This usually happens when I drive this thing.
Who's driving on the holiday light trip?
I am, but by the time they see this, it'll be too late. They'll know from personal experience that I'm not good at this.
This is just a dry run.
Oh, we haven't crashed yet. This whole concept of driving around and talking is just casual and fun and just something that's been on my mind. And last night we were talking about Jacob and Esau and how they were twins and they were promises to Rebekah and Isaac. And it was a beautiful social picture for us today, what it looks like for kind of the justice of God and how it falls in the world, because it said that the younger twin, which was Jacob, would be served by his older brother Esau, that Esau would serve Jacob. And one of the points that I believe that God was making, if you look into it all, is this idea that he doesn't really pick or select people based on our measurement system. You know, we measure everything. We measure credit scores, we measure BMIs, we measure keto levels, we measure everything as a measurement. Our blood pressure, our, everything having to do with our lives has a measurement. And God doesn't measure that way. He just doesn't. He actually doesn't care about the world system of measurement. He proved that point over and over and again, this idea of the last being first or the upside down kingdom. And in the case of Jacob and Esau, he said, I'm going to take the young one and the older one will serve the younger one. And that went against the preference of human tradition, where the older one is really the one that has the most kind of rights, the most inheritance. But it's not the way things work in the kingdom of God. And or really in the world when it comes to the things of God, and it flies in the face of what we normally think and do and are. But it was the case of Isaac. The Lord told Abraham that his offspring would be identified through his son Isaac, and Isaac was the promise. Isaac was the one that God promised. Ishmael was the one that Abraham conceived in his own flesh, in his own ability to make it happen. And it just goes against everything that's inside of us as human beings. It's frustrating, this idea that our performance is not what God's measuring. But when you realize that our performance can never bring his promises to pass in our life, it's a lot easier to kind of hide and rest in the promise, in faith. I think, what did you call it, Daniel?
The run to the litter?
The run of the litter, yeah. And it's kind of like, when you go to pick out puppies, the run of the litter is usually cheaper because they just assume that he's not going to, or she or she's not going to be as healthy or not going to be as beautiful or as big or as muscular.
But that's the one that I pick out.
Yeah. And that's really the heart of God. He takes the least of these and exalts them. And I don't know, I driving around today as we're headed out to take care of some stuff for the church, I just think it's a message for every generation, but especially this current generation, that stop measuring yourself according to the world system and realize that the equality comes not from you upping your game. The equality comes from believing the promise. And the promise is that you were uniquely made, that you were fashioned and identified uniquely, that there's nobody in this world that can be you, that you were God's idea. And if we actually believe that about each other, about ourselves, I just feel like our world would look differently. I feel like politics would look different. I feel like our system and government and way of transactions and things would just be totally different if we stopped making everybody feel like they had to be something they weren't in order to be qualified to do something, especially for God.
Didn't you say that where God's dream come true?
Yeah.
So how do you measure that?
I think David Wagner puts it this way. He says that a friend of ours says that God had a dream and he wrapped your body around it. And that's it. It's that simple. We are the dream of heaven. And what makes you equal with everyone else is you believing and having faith. If you can have faith, then nobody has anything over you. So, Michael, you got anything to add to that?
I think just what you were saying last night and through this, it made me feel more at ease personally, because I think, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this, but that whole system of measuring in the flesh, basically, can be one of the biggest sources of depression and self-worth or lack thereof. So, believing the promise, believing in God, just absolutely put me at ease personally.
Yeah. So you've been driving with Dan, hashtag, what is it, Carpool Theology, and Michael and Stephen and Daniel. I just want to take this opportunity to thank Daniel Meltz for just being Daniel Meltz. He likes that.
It's important.
He likes that, yeah. So we're going to try to find a parking spot, and Stephen's going to keep rolling here because this should be interesting.